years ago, and I kick myself to this day over this one. I was in the record business, and I was in Chicago just on a visit. And I stopped by to see this guy because I used to know him in those days. He had this enormous mound of really heavy avant-garde classical records, all this experimental stuff, electronic stuff, really out, obscure foreign labels. I mean, I had an idea what I was looking at the time, but I had no idea what to do with it. I had zero market for it, because there was probably 15,000 of these records, beyond obscure. And I'm sure I could have bought those records for a quarter a piece, a dime a piece. But you know, as it was, I bought like 25 of them, just what I could carry in one hand. Yeah, Mike, how much you want for these? Just $5, you know. I made a section, avant-garde classical. And guys I knew at the time who were coming in, wow, Bob, where'd you get these? They were excited. Records like that now, I could live for 5 years off that lot of records if I had today. But you know, who knew? So every now and then, like, especially like if business is kind of slow, I think about those classical, those avant-garde records. Should have gotten those. I should have just gotten them and put them somewhere until I learned what they are. I didn't have any books. I never had any experience. I just kind of like started working with these things. And if you look at it today, you can see the end I started is kind of like, you know, just kind of not that good. And then as it goes across the front and around the corner down the side, you can see where, okay, I was starting to learn more what I was doing. And it's kind of like the record store. You know, when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was the first one to admit it. And now I feel like, yeah, you know, got a pretty good idea.
But he never looks back. If he wants to do something, he'll do it. He doesn't agonize. There's no wishy-washiness. No, he just does it, which I really admire because I'm quite a waffler.
I think the similarities between building a stone wall and running the record business, I think the common thread, if there is one, is persistence and not being afraid to make a mistake. You know, if something doesn't work out just right, you kind of tweak it and do something else, and you keep that up until you find the right thing. I really do think it's the appeal for me is making something out of nothing, you know.
I've never heard him say can't. I can't because of this. Never. The bike shop, you know, those people really rallied around him after his accident, but he realized pretty quickly that he was going to need to find another way to support himself.
I was in the furniture business for about 10 years till I moved out here, and one thing led to another, and I went into the record business. You know?
He's always been just a great music lover, just all kinds of music, knows a lot, always been hanging out in record stores in Chicago where he grew up, and so that kind of was an idea that stuck.
I kind of felt like, since I already knew how to buy and sell through the furniture business, I could try the record business. It'd be kind of the same thing.
I remember the day it happened. I came over to my friend Cindy's shop on 4th Street, and she said, "Oh my God, that nice guy Bob, he's had a terrible accident." He was helping a friend move, and he was parked legally at the curb, and it was a February day. The sun was gleaming off of the pavement. You know how it gets, so it gets in your eyes. And an elderly lady got into the sun and blinded her. So she trod hard on the gas, stepped down hard, sped up, didn't even put on the brakes, and she was not in the road. She was at the curb, and so he was loading something into the van, and boom. And he was lying in the gutter and bleeding profusely. And luckily, a Coast Guard guy came by, took his belt off, put a tourniquet on his leg, and Bob said, he said he could feel the temperature going down from, he thought, I might not even make it here, because he could feel the blood draining out of him. Luckily, the ambulance came, saved his life, and then came the long road of, I think he had something like 26 surgeries to try to save his leg, at least 26. Took muscles out of his back, took bone out of both of his hips many, many times. They'd still be trying to, if he hadn't said, I think I'd rather just have the one leg. At the time, the State Theater was porno only, and there were only a handful of businesses even operating in the building at the time.
So I wanted to look at this space, and I was to bring Lori along with me to look at it, and just so to get her second opinion. And there were two spaces right next door to each other. And I was looking, I brought her to look at the space I wanted, and all she could do was look at the other one and think shoe store, shoe store. So that was that.
It was named after his favorite bar in Chicago, the Enterprise Lounge, where he would go and hear his beloved Von Freeman tenor saxophone player do his open sessions every Thursday, I think. And he just loved the Enterprise Lounge. He started on just a total shoestring. I mean, he had maybe like, when he started, he had maybe like 2 boxes of records. 2 bins, maybe. 2 bins.
I've heard, like, from my dad that when we first started, like, if he got a phone call, like, one phone call that day, that was exciting. When I was growing up here in the store, like, I thought, like, all record stores were like this, like, basically the way he ran it. But an interesting thing about record stores is that they're, unlike chain stores and stuff like that, they're all, like, completely different.
What do you think's unique about this store?
Mainly that it's all records, which is a big plus. It's not like a box of records and a bunch of CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a Portland tradition.
Like this place, because it's in Portland, Maine, basically, it has to have like a more generalized approach where we've got basically like jazz, rock, some classical stuff, and other genres like reggae or psychedelic stuff or electronic stuff.
I bought a big collection of ethnic music from a big school in Chicago last year, and thousands of like ethnic field recordings. Pygmy music from the Ituri Forest in Zaire, that kind of stuff. And it's gone real well. It's always crowded, but right now it's worse than it usually is.
So this is essentially your office.
Well, you can call it that, but I don't. You can.
People have always thought he was crazy, and I mean crazy, like people worried about him. No CDs? What are you, nuts? He knew it was gonna be rough, and it was rough. It was really rough.
I mean, the CD thing has made business fluctuate. in the early 90s, when it looked like CDs were going to completely take over, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just hung in there and, you know, I was eating beans in the corner for quite a while. But it worked out all right.
CDs are kind of on the way out because everyone's converting them to MP3s and stuff like that. I mean, that's exactly what I did with my CD collection. So, but yeah, just wait a decade or so and people are gonna like, wow, CDs, you know?
Yeah.
Although maybe that's not gonna happen because I haven't really seen like a resurgence with like 8 tracks and stuff like that. So.
Well, the store has seen the entire lifespan, and it probably will see the entire lifespan of the CD. Don't you think?
Which blows me away.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, wow, who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
My first record, over $1. Yeah. Velvet Underground, 1969, double live. Never thought I'd spend $16 on a record in my life. It's been a hard road since.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He wanted to remain unique and specialized, and he did not want to have to worry about what's at the top of the charts. The same people who called him crazy now say, "Boy, you're smart." I wish I'd have done that. His other dealer friends say.
As much or more than making a living, that's really what I wanted to do more than anything. Was just create something where people would have a good time, and I figured if I could do that, making a living would follow from that. Strictly making it up as I went along. And I still do that. My son's 25 and he's kind of like in a transitional phase, and I think he's just kind of feeling his way.
And I found myself like yet again unemployed and broke and like in an apartment about this big in Boston. And I was just kind of like, I can't do this anymore, so I moved back here.
He has yearned for young Bob to take an interest in the store. I mean, always.
I pretty much grew up here at the store since my dad owns it, but over the years, I think I've only worked here in some kind of official capacity only 2 or 3 times, this time included.
I told Bob, you know, it's a job that anybody would love. I mean, it isn't all just sitting around playing records, but it can be.
Yeah, well, I've had like a few retail jobs after graduating art school a couple years ago, and this is by far the most interesting job I've had in a while. One thing I like is the fact that I only work with him.
Bob is extremely picky about what goes in stock. You know, if there's a mark on the record, he needs to know. I mean, every single record gets cleaned by hand, graded. Is it perfect? Is it almost perfect?
This is a pretty rare record. It's in dead mint condition. I don't want anybody messing with it, so I'm going to tape it up and mark it mint and price it.
If there's a mark on it, a good-sized mark, a lot of record dealers would let it slip by. Not Bob, no. Even if it's a $50 record, if there's a big mark on it, no, goes right in the 75-cent bin.
I'm just trying to learn, I guess, as much as I can from my dad. I don't really have any say in like what we have in the store or anything like that.
I mean, I have no illusions about him taking over. In fact, it's probably a good thing he's not thinking that way, because I'm thinking I'll probably be doing this for another 20 years.
Sometimes the father-son dynamic is a little tough. Sometimes I insert myself into the middle when I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Did you guys work with a record on?
Actually, they can't because it would be a copyright issue within the documentary.
Huh.
Yeah, see?
Wow, serious.
Yeah.
I never was and still have not a record collector. It's like a completist thing, you know.
Yeah, I would definitely say that there's like a certain kind of person that comes into the store. We definitely do get like collector types, and they have a very uh, enthusiastic knowledge of like certain types of music that they're interested in. They're kind of away from what could be called mainstream like popular culture and that type of thing. Like they're very much into like what their interests are and stuff like that. But you know, we also do just get people walking in off the street.
I will tell you one thing about a guy who used to come in every week. He talk about, 60s politics, talk about music, talk about records, bitch about stuff around town. It's like coming into a bar, but he didn't drink. Just listen to music and all this kind of stuff, and he'd buy records just to have them. And I got a call from his sister. The guy had died in his apartment, and she wanted me to come out and look at his records, most of which, of course, had come from here. He knew his stuff, and he wasn't shy about spending $30 on a record if he wanted it. So he had a lot of heavy stuff, and crammed in little crevices and piled up, and you had to step over them, and under his bed, and everywhere he could fit records, there were records. And I'm looking around, pulling them out, making a pile so I can look through what he had. And I don't see any evidence of any kind of stereo system whatsoever. No turntable, no speakers, no anything. It was a social connection for him. And that's probably all he needed. Yeah. Well, why don't you just buy this right now?
Yeah, that's easy.
Some guys in the business are fueled by that, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, wow, I had the Sun Ra record, I bought it for 75 cents at a church sale, and I sold it to a guy in Japan for $1,000. That kind of thing happens. But if it happened to me, I wouldn't tell anybody. Maybe I would tell Lori. Also, the really expensive records, it kind of really goes too far over to the obsession side for me. Like it's a different customer. You can make a lot more people happy with 100 records than you can with one. It's like all of a sudden, all kinds of people want to know about records. For many years, people thought I was just crazy. People felt bad for me. I almost sold this business about 10 years ago to a guy who was working for me at the time. I thought I needed a fresh start doing something else. And one night when we were kind of into the pricing phase, I came in here late to drop something off or pick up a phone number or something, I just stopped in for a minute. Maybe I had to use the bathroom and I was in the neighborhood, I don't know. And it was like 11 o'clock at night, midnight, And I come in and went to the back room and came out and just kind of looked around, and I thought, wow, this really is a cool place. And I really like this business. What am I going to do if I sell this? And my lovely bride, she said, yeah, what are you going to do? Start all over with something else?
I think it's been the best move he could have ever made. It's been great. He's an inspiration, really, to a lot of people.
When I say I don't really know what the future holds, I think I do have an idea. I think business is going to be good. It's going to be harder to find records than it used to be, but I think to be a geezer in this business might be kind of fun. Every day is different.